you, Thingiverse! Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the 3D Musketeers YouTube channel. If you are new here, don't forget to leave a like and get subscribed. We've got quite a few fails for you all coming up today, including a massive Grant Rant. So we'll warn you ahead of time. If you want to skip it, you can skip it, but I know a lot of you seem to like it. We're going to start with a Gizo spider that it technically doesn't have 8 legs anymore, so can I call it a spider? We're then going to move into the Thingiverse rant. Thingiverse is up to no good once again, disabling download all, as well as using systems to potentially block those utilizing ad blockers on their website. We will then move into a Prusa that probably should not have been upgraded and is dealing with quite a few individual issues. And finally, we will end on an extruder drive gear that has seen some better days. All the timestamps are right next to me. Feel free to click around as you guys want. Either way, enjoy. Printing Gizo the spider and always fails on the same legs. Please help. This is a Neptune 2S. They've printed it 4 times and always fails on the front left and the third in on the left. Adhesion doesn't appear to be an issue and the brims are still attached. Broke the front leg off the build plate, so printed detached where the 2 parts meet. Have printed it 60, 50, and 40 millimeters second, as well as 0.12 and 0.2 millimeter layer heights. Has anyone else printed this okay or had similar problems? Bed is clean, as that's all people on 3D printing ever suggest. I'm gonna question with are you sure? Making sure that the bed is clean is way tougher than just kind of objectively looking at it. You actually have to verify that there are no contaminants on the bed. That's easy to do with a wipe of isopropyl alcohol and honestly, cleaning it with hot water and dish soap. You don't have to do that before every print, but a good wipe of alcohol is always good to make sure that none of the oils from your hands are stuck on there. Visibly looking at it, yeah, the bed looks clean, but there might be some oils from your hands on there that are keeping it from sticking. The other issue is, this is kind of a torture, right? One, buddy, infill, please lower it. It, like, seriously does not need to be this crazy. This is a little excessive even for me. It looks like it's like 80 or 90% infill. Look at that. And is that gyroid? Yeah, it looks like it might even be gyroid. And quite a few perimeters. The failure is because the part is getting knocked into, from what I can tell. Doesn't appear to be bed adhesion, but hey, clean your beds, right? I feel like that's a pretty easy thing for all of us to agree on. Clean your dang beds. But I don't think there's enough Z-hop, or any Z-hop for that matter. Adding Z-hop in the movements between retractions is really helpful to keep your part from getting damaged. Let's take a look at this a little bit. We're looking at this adorable spider here, and yeah, this print's gonna suck. Like, this is a tough print no matter what. So let's get this thing sliced and let's take a look at some of the issues that we're looking at here. This is 0.2 millimeter layers, 10% gyroid infill, and 2 perimeters. Pretty standard stuff. We can see that with a brim, this is gonna be a disaster to get it to work because all these parts are gonna end up fusing together. So it really does kind of torture your printer and force you to rely on really good bed adhesion. I would look at doing what's called a Z-hop. Inside of your filament settings, we can do filament overrides and we can look at the lift Z. Now, I haven't modified this one from stock, so we can go over to extruder 1 and we can see that lift Z is 0.4 millimeters. That is generally enough so that when you're moving from part to part, especially down here where the printer's moving from here to here, that it's not going to knock into anything. But recognize that even with a brim, this is a pretty difficult part to print. And a couple of extra perimeters might help out because there's a lot of small retractions here that might make life a little bit difficult. So what exactly happened in this scenario? I think we had a Z-hop failure, or maybe when the printer is retracting and moving, it's blobbing a little bit. But it doesn't appear to be so. It looks like the retraction is actually pretty decent. But I can see that we have a little bit of damage potentially. It's hard to tell, but there might be some damage on that back leg there. And we've got, I think, some over extruding. I don't know. This does not appear to be 0.2mm layers to me, but we definitely have some lines where extrusion values are changing based on where the printer is retracting. Something to take a look at as well. But I don't know if I want to dive too deep into that just yet. I want to deal with, well, everything else. Textured build plates are a bit of a challenge, if you will, for this kind of thing. It is complicated, to say the least, because it doesn't always stick as well as you think. It's why we do prefer smooth sheets. Textured has its value, has its place, and has its purpose. I don't disagree with this. But smooth sheets certainly solve a lot of those issues where sometimes texture doesn't grab as well as you want. And a lot of times with textured build plates, you need to have your Z offset set quite a bit closer than you might think so that your filament can grab into the texture of the build plate itself. So some good advice on this one. I'd look at enabling Z-hop first. That's the first thing that I would look at. I think that might solve the problems. I would look at dealing with the acceleration as well. If you're accelerating too fast to do those movements, that acceleration itself can kind of jar and knock the print around. Something to be aware of. But yeah, I'd start with the Z-hop, make sure the bed is clean, maybe play around with acceleration a little bit, and for the love of all things holy, you have way too many perimeters and way too much infill. Please cut that down. Otherwise, I think you're good to go. Hopefully we get a reply back on this one. This one might be an interesting one to play around with. All right. Thingiverse, like they haven't been in the news enough lately when, you know, big ass data breach they told nobody about, changing creator links to their own affiliate links, and a lot of other sketchy bullshit. Now it's getting worse. Recently, they disabled the download all feature. Let me show you. If we go to a model here and we click download all files, download all files, download all files. I don't want to do it this way. Yes, there's only 3 files for this. But imagine you're doing something like, I don't know, a mechanical clock, for instance. Like this one. And I want to download all the parts. Well, that sucks for me. So how do we fix this? Immediately, you change from /files to /zip. Boom. It downloads. Great. We love that. Cool. That's the immediate fix for getting around it. But users have been seeing that Thingiverse is not letting you download things unless you disable your ad blocker. I've got 3 words for you. Fuck you, Thingiverse. This is anti-consumer. We want ad blockers. Why? Because we hate ads. Just like we hate my segue to our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. If you want to get your ideas out of your head and into your hands with full art-to-part rapid prototyping and product development, you can reach out to us, the experts, at 3D Musketeers. We have over 24 printers to help you make awesome every single day. And if you think you got what it takes to join the 3D Musketeers team, we have openings in business development, lead generation, sales, and marketing. If you think you got what it takes, shoot us an email. You can find the email in the description. But if you do love what we do here and you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/3dmusketeers, where you can join for as little as $1 and help contribute to these awesome videos every single week. And you get uncensored versions. There are lots of bleeps in this video. You can also support us with a YouTube channel membership, which will also enable you to get the uncensored and longer edits of basically every video that we make. Anyways, let's get back to shitting on Thingiverse, because I love that. Now, what I can say is I've got an ad blocker. I'm using uBlock Origin. I have no issue. Now, I'm guessing that maybe they're using some specific type of ad blocker, but even further, the funny thing is, even with my ad blocker off, the ads are broken and don't load. Is that true? Oh boy, let's do it. Yep, ads are broken and don't load. That's fucking hilarious. Oh, fuck you, Thingiverse.
Fuck you, Shorzy!
This is ridiculous. There are extensions for basically every browser to bring back the download all button. That'll just send you to the zip link, but if you don't want to add an extension, just literally change from /files to /zip. and you'll be good to go. But this is ridiculous. And I guess I should point out that you can easily migrate automatically all of your files from Thingiverse over to Prusa printers and My Mini Factory. I don't know if Colts, Thangs, or any of the other people have it, but I know for a fact that My Mini Factory and Prusa printers does. Personally, I love Prusa printers. I understand the name is kind of rough if you don't own a Prusa printer, because it's not just for Prusa printers, but I promise it's fine. Their website is amazing. Seriously, look at the UI here. Okay, not great. Let's go to Prusa printers. Look at this UI. Also, there are contests happening every single week. Come on now. And you can get Prusa meters for doing certain things. It's cool. I like their gamification. I think Prusa did a good job. And they don't bitch at you if you have an ad block on, because they don't really have ads. And when you have 50 freaking files and you want to just download them, all you got to do is click all model files and it will all download. I know. Fucking crazy. But it's true. It's true. This is not good. Stratasys, I'm looking at you. Y'all got to get your head out of your asses. You have a really good thing with Thingiverse and you're just abusing it. Honestly, you're abusing it. Give it a server that's faster than a potato. Seriously. My old computer, an i7 4770K and a GTX 770 could run your website faster than your website. I'm actually fairly certain it could. Like, statistically speaking, I believe it could. You're now disabling the ability to download all. You're using ways to keep people from downloading stuff that have ad blockers, and you're not updating your UI. Great. It's MakerBot Thingiverse. MakerBot is irrelevant. I care about the community, and this is anti-community. If people want to run ad blockers, let them run ad blockers. I'm a content creator. I hate when people run ad blockers because it means that we lose ad revenue on our videos. But I don't tell people to turn them off because I'm not an asshole. Get it together. All of our models are off of Thingiverse. I try to avoid it when at all possible and try to support companies that support open source like Prusa. I'm a Prusa fanboy. I feel like people should know this by now. I don't hide it. Literally, there are 4 behind me. And no, we're not financially supported by Prusa, but I want to be. So, you know, hit us up, please. But this is anti-consumer. This is just not okay. And clearly, I'm not the only one that feels this way. 5,417 other people, 648 comments, and a lot of them are great. It's because the whole site is run on a Raspberry Pi 2 with a refurbished SD card and a 3G internet dongle. Fuck yeah. If you want to laugh, just read the comments in here. 5 Pico. Arduino Uno. Okay, it's not that bad. Pi Pico maybe, but not Uno bad. And we do know that there is a planned name change. So it was right here, October of last year. So Prusa Printers is going to be rebranded to what? I don't know. But guys, I'm telling you, if you still have parts on Thingiverse, it's time. Because ultimately, that's the only way that MakerBot and Stratasys are ultimately going to wise up to what's going on. If you piss off the people and they move their stuff off your website stops being relevant. Since this is PrintFixFriday, I guess I'm supposed to provide answers on how to fix this. Don't suck. Probably a good one to start with. Don't lie about data breaches. That's a pretty good one. Don't force people to turn off ad blockers. I like that one. And, you know, links that say download all should actually download all. I know that this is complicated, that UI and UX is very difficult. I've had a recent conversation with an executive at Autodesk talking about the issues of UI and UX on Autodesk's website. So what else can they do? Really not much, right? Thingiverse was one of the few and only options back in the day. When you look for model repositories on Google, Thingiverse is actually not the first one anymore. Good Lord, wow. They used to be number 1, but for some reason, you know, the article from All3DP wins. And see, Thingiverse is Number one, I think that there's a lot of growth that needs to happen before I would give Thingiverse another chance. But as far as I'm concerned, it's Prusa Printers, Cults 3D, My Mini Factory, Thangs, and many others that are going to rise above and be better. Because Stratasys clearly doesn't care about the makers, and they clearly don't care about the community. So to me, it's time to go over to somebody who does. Recently mounted a Prusa Mark III's for the first time. Pretty sure you mean modded, but I'm gonna go with phrasing on that one.
Phrasing?
I own a Delta and Cartesians are new to me. I applied the linear rail X and Y mods and using the Dragon hot end from Haldis. It's not a slicer issue. I'm sure it's hardware, but I have no hints if it's X, Y, the cooling, or what by looking at it. Help. First off, why the fuck would you mod a Prusa? And why the fuck would you do it this way? You left one of the original linear rods and put like an MGN 15 or 9 or something on there? Why would you do that? What is the point of that? Honestly, what the fuck's the point of that? It's not gonna do anything. At all. It's literally not gonna do anything. You're still using an LM8UU. Your belt's all fucked up, I can see it. Dude, you took a perfectly good printer that was run great stock. Ask me how I know. And you added all this extra shit to it. Why would you get rid of a perfectly good E3D-V6? They work great out of the box. Honestly, I don't get some people. If it works, don't mess with it. I digress. Let's move into this a little bit. We have definitely got some ringing issues. Well, Grant, maybe it's because they modded their printer. Well, that's a great thought, Grant. I think you might be right. Return your printer back to stock. You can leave the linear rails on if you want. Get rid of that bullshit hot end and get yourself a real E3D V6, which is what that printer came with. Or if you're feeling randy and really want to make sure that you're getting just a little bit more of an upgrade, go buy a Revo 6. Because honestly, like, there are so many things that you changed and you're saying, well, I don't know what's wrong with it. I'm guessing you've got some issues here. Belts aren't like this. And the individual noted that the belt being wobbly like that is from the way that they stored things. If your belt is properly tensioned, it won't do that. I don't think your belt is properly tensioned. Hilariously, the Prusa can tell you if it is. Inside of the calibration and settings menu, the printer can actually detect, utilizing its skip step detection, how tight your belts actually are. Check that. The printer will tell you what's going on. The other thing that I'm noting is, what is wrong with your print surface? There's a lot of damage done to this print surface. I guess I'm a little confused. We certainly have some issues. It's not the worst I've seen, but this particular side is really bad. It's like there's slop, and a lot of it, because the printer's retracting like it should, but when it's going to make these small movements, if we're seeing issues there, that's on the back side of the printer, check the pulley on your Y-axis. I think it might be loose. This one's tough because so many things were changed. Is your hot end actually tight? What does your extruder look like? When you mod a printer, that should viably work perfectly out of the box. And if it doesn't, Prusa support is amazing. Go get help from them. You're changing so many variables at once that it becomes very difficult to get you the help that you need. It's definitely a slop problem, whether it's backlash from a loose drive gear, it's loose belts, or even bearings that aren't well aligned. The reason why Prusa uses LM8UU ball bearings on linear rods rather than the MGN9, MGN12 linear guideways on rails is because they can account for a little bit more of inaccuracy. There are printed parts on these machines. It makes sense. Also, I'm fairly certain LM8UUs are considerably cheaper, but they work just fine. When you're dealing specifically with the Y-axis, if those two rails are not perfectly aligned, you're going to get binding. It's why on the Prusas, the old ones use actual U-bolts, and the new ones use a piece of bent sheet metal to hold the actual bearing in place. But when you replace that with linear guideways, you run into potential issues of binding if the rails themselves are not perfectly parallel with each other. So a recommendation that I would do here is loosen all of the screws that hold down your y-axis rails and move that y-axis back and forth. Keep an eye on those rails. If you have a dial indicator would be awesome to put at each end as you're moving the print bed to make sure that your linear rail itself is not moving as it moves back and forth. If it is, that means that your carriage that rides on that linear rail is not properly seated onto the bed of the printer. So what does all of this mean? Well, the upgrades kind of screwed it. I don't like dragon hot ends, and I don't think you're going to see any benefit with a dragon hot end over something like an E3D V6, other than I believe the dragon can do one-hand nozzle changes, but it must be hot. If you're going to spend that kind of money, go get a Revo 6 from E3D. I know they're a little bit expensive, but they're literally drop-in, and you don't have any issues like this. I don't know about you, but reliability is more important to me. And yes, going from deltas to Cartesians is a whole different world. And it's interesting because to me, deltas are way more complicated. They're harder to get aligned and assembled and all that. But once they're fully calibrated, deltas are beautiful to watch and they run like Swiss watches, as long as they were built decently. Cartesians just work. Yeah, they're not as pretty to watch, but they do just work. We definitely have some issues with an axis. Which one? I don't know, because we see some issues here, which is the y-axis moving back and forth just a little bit to get this movement in place. It's fairly certain something is going on with the y-axis. We've got some potential Z-banding issues, but I don't know if that's potentially slop in your x-axis. Fairly certain your belts are loose. Make sure your pulleys are tight up against the motors too, and for God's sakes, why? Honestly. Look what you've done to my boy. Prusas make great benchies. Case in point, this one. This benchie's great. Sure, it's not perfect. It was time-lapsed, so, you know, time-lapse artifacts. But, like, it's pretty clean. Cleaner than that. It's a stock printer. And I get that people want to upgrade their printers. I'm totally fine with that. I don't have any issues with people upgrading their printers, but do 1 or 2 upgrades at a time. When you look at doing all of these upgrades like that, you introduce so many variables that it is difficult to help out. Found out why my printer was under extruding. Didn't hear any clicking or slipping, only saw glorious spaghetti for a bit. Yep, that'll do it. For the unkeen-eyed viewers, there is your problem. This is what it should look like. This is what it does look like. This is probably from either way too high extruder tension, running some sort of abrasive material through, or quite frankly, the gear being made of pot metal. These cheap extruder gears are not necessarily known for being the highest quality. When your printer is built to a price point, yeah, sometimes things aren't going to be great. It is what it is. But I'm glad that this user figured it out. I don't know if we ever covered this person in a video, but this is something that you should check for. If your printer is under extruding for some reason, check to make sure that your extruder gear actually has teeth left in it. Now, if you wanted to, you could just loosen it, move it a little bit, and run it again, and it will probably work just fine. But for the price of a decent extruder gear, or just going over to one of these cheap all-metal extruders, it might just be worth it to do the replacement. I don't rely on stock parts for printers under $300 to last any appreciable amount of time. If you do have a cheaper printer like an Ender 3, it's fine. But expect at some point, these items are going to start wearing to a point where they will need to be replaced. And there's really not all that much of preventative maintenance that you can do to stop this. This is just a habit of time. And especially on the printers that have really heavy springs, forcing the filament against the extruder drive gear. We've actually seen cases where when the extruder is ran without filament, the idler ball bearing that rides on the other side of the filament can grind into the brass gear itself and cause damage as well, because ball bearings are hardened steel and brass is softer than hardened steel. Most things are softer than hardened steel. And so this is why we've said it, and I'll say it again. Spares, 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 spares. These parts are cheap as chips. Buy spares, keep them around, make sure you know where they are, because honestly, that's the next problem, is organizing. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do a video on organizing our entire setup here. It's going to be a thing. It'll be the first time you guys will get to see, like, the full shop for what it looks like, if all goes well. We'll see. Spare parts are good to have. That way, if something doesn't feel right, you can just quickly replace it and try to reduce your downtime as much as possible. To me, downtime is way more costly than expensive printers. That's just my feeling. Let me know what you guys think down in those comments below. If you think we deserved it, leave a like and get subscribed. But that's all I have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. If you're looking for something else to watch, right below me will be the entire PrintFixFriday series, and next to me will be the printer maintenance series. I will see you guys down in those comments, and in the next one, take care.